Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. We're going to get started in just a moment as we go live on Facebook. Welcome, everybody. I know we're all getting in here right now. Just hang tight as we welcome everybody in. All right, great. We are now live streaming on Facebook. Welcome, everyone. Why am I not seeing it coming out? There it is. Okay, so let me just share it on my personal page and then we will get started. Excellent. Okay. Welcome all. So happy to see you. Hope you are staying safe out there. Almost everybody I know either currently has COVID or has had COVID, including many of the beautiful faces that I'm seeing in the window right now. And so I hope that you are really, really trying to be healthy out there and wearing N95 masks and not gathering in large groups and just stay home. We have another couple of weeks of this. That's about it. We're still just admitting some folks in and then we're going to get started. So let me introduce myself because I see some unfamiliar names. My name is Judy Mark. I am first and foremost the parent of a young man who is a participant in the self-determination program in his second year. And we have loved self-determination, even though the entire time it's been COVID. So we haven't been able to use all of the great opportunities. But I'm also the president and co-founder of Disability Voices United, which is the sponsor of the SDP Connect every other week meetings. So in case some of you don't know what Disability Voices United is, we're an organization directed by and for people with disabilities and their family members. Every single person who is either on our paid staff or is our board member or are our interns, are family members or people with disabilities themselves. You'll meet a few of them today. And we work on a range of issues, including self-determination, supported decision-making. We work on issues of equity. It's one of our top priorities, as well as accountability over the systems that are supposed to be helping us. And we work as well on ensuring meaningful outcomes. So we have been so busy over the last couple of weeks since the new year. And because of that, I didn't have time to create a giant agenda for today, but that's okay because there's so much going on in the self-determination and other worlds that I thought this would be a good time to hear from all of you how things are going, if there are some barriers that you're seeing. So before we kind of open it up to everybody, I wanted to give you all an update on a couple of things that we will probably spend a bit more time on in the future. The first one is that Disability Voices United, along with several other organizations, including Disability Rights California, the Stanford IDD Law and Policy Project, and the Integrated Community Collaborative, are co-sponsoring a really amazing bill on reforming the fair hearing system. If any of you are really interested in that, please let us know in the chat and we'll include you in the work that we're doing. Some of you may know what the fair hearing system is. It is when you disagree with your regional center on eligibility or services that you receive. You can go before a judge or go into a mediation and try to argue your case. We know that this hasn't been working well for a lot of people, particularly people of color. And so we have what we think is a pretty great set of ideas, and we are going to be presenting that to the general community in the next couple of weeks. So you can hear all about our legislation. We also have legislation that we are introducing next week on a conservatorship reform. We know that a lot of folks are conserved in the developmental disability system. We want to make sure that people who have alternatives to that, and we also want to make sure that those who are conserved are that the parents who may be the conservator are protected from having the conservatorship taken away from them, which we hear sadly increasingly happening. So we will definitely get you more information. We're actually on the conservatorship law, conservatorship bill. We are working closely with the Free Britney Spears movement. They are one of our co-sponsors, and it's we're very, very excited about those opportunities. We also continue to work, we'll continue to work this year to ensure accountability over regional centers and service providers through our participation on work groups that the state is running. One of them is called the Quality Incentive Work Group, which looks at the significant rate increases that service providers are getting, but they are supposed to be held accountable for better outcomes through with these increased rates. We are also actively participating in the work group on the Performance Incentive Program, which is funding provided to regional centers so that they meet a set of certain outcomes, not only internally, but also for each individual person that they serve. So those are some of our 4 of our goals for the year. We have many, many other goals beyond that. We hope you'll join us in all of our activities or the ones that you might be particularly interested in. So what we're going to do today is talk specifically about what we are seeing in the self-determination program. I know that in the next week or so, the Department of Developmental Services will be issuing directives that were long time in coming. I see Will Sanford in the middle of my screen, and he and I worked on one of these, I swear, like 6 or 7 years ago, on compliant settings for the self-determination program. Remember that, Will? I believe that they are finally coming out with a directive. It's just unbelievable how long it's taken. There is also going to be a directive coming out on the kinds of services and goods. So that's items and people and types of things that you do in your spending plan, what can and cannot be funded. I think that it's going to, having this directive out there is going to reduce a lot of the barriers that a lot of you are facing when you are working with your regional centers, and the regional centers are telling you, no, you cannot do this, because they will be able to refer specifically to this directive. And if the directive says you cannot do it, then they can point to that. And if the directive is silent on the thing you want to purchase, then you should be able to. So I'm hoping that this will break down a lot of the barriers, as well as make life a lot easier for the FMSs who have been having a lot of problems, because every time someone wants to make a small change to their spending plan, it's like 6 different people are looking at it at the regional center, and these things really need to change. So those are what I'm hearing. The directives right now have not been released, so I can't share anything specific with you. But what I can say is that it will be, I think it's going to be very, very helpful, and I'm very excited for it to be released in the next week or so. And as soon as it is released, of course, if you're on our mailing list, as you all should be, and actually will be, if you registered for this meeting, you will be on our mailing list. We will get out the directive to the community as soon as it is available. So now I'd like to introduce my team of amazing self-determination folks. First, I want to introduce Molly Kennedy. Molly is our self-determination program fellow. Has developed a whole range of training specifically targeting self-advocates. If you've never been to one of our meetings before, you may not have seen her in action, but she's really incredible. And Ed Herzl, who is our coordinator for communications and development. And she runs the show here, and she has a cult following. So if you all want to have any questions, she monitors the chats. If you have comments, she monitors the chat, and she'll come on and voice your what you've written there. You are also allowed to speak not just through the chat, but you can raise your hand, you going down to reactions. clicking on the raise hand feature like I just did, and I will call on you and allow you to verbalize what it is you would like to say. So Molly, did you want to start with anything? You know what? I also want to introduce Nina Spiegelman, who is our Director of Policy. If you could make sure Nina is a co-host in case she needs to speak, Ed, when you have a chance. Nina is our Director of Policy, and so she's involved with a lot of this legislation and a lot of this oversight work that we're working on. So she may have a comment for you on a lot of this, what you're saying today. So that is our team. We hope to expand our team even more this year, and are very excited to tell you when that happens. So Molly, did you want to start with anything? Yes.
No, I do think we are really excited to start this year. We hope that the self-determination program throughout the state really grows this year, and really it's more and more people are going into the program. But as we'll talk about today, there are barriers that we have to deal with right away. And I already see in the chat about IF. Judy will be talking about that. We don't have solutions, but maybe we could talk about ideas. But we're hoping that our goal is to get rid of barriers, whatever barriers there are. If it's government bureaucrats, if it's stalls at regional centers, if it's issues with IFs or FMS, we're here to get rid of barriers, and that will be our main focus. Is that right, Judy?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're not only working sort of systemically with DDS to break down the barriers, but we're trying to work with the self-determination local advisory committees at each of the regional centers to encourage them and to empower them to ask the right questions and to make sure that folks are getting what they need at their own regional centers. So we're now going to kind of open it up. So if folks, I know that I already saw Tammy Polly in the chat say, can you talk about the FMS crisis? So sure, and people should feel free to raise their hand if you want to chime in on what you've been hearing. I have been alerting DDS to this crisis for months now. I mean, everybody's now starting to feel it, but I saw it coming back in October. And it was in October that the first FMS left California and stopped working, ARC Center. And then in November, Public Partnerships pulled out. And so that's two of them who are no longer working in California. And then on top of that, you have some that have put a hold on taking new clients. And then you have some FMSs who are not responding to people, who are not paying bills on time. I mean, it is a mess. If you don't have strong FMSs, and we've said this from the beginning, if you don't have strong FMSs, you are in bad shape. You are in really bad shape. So here it is, what's come true. So Tammy, go ahead and talk about it.
Yep. I know my husband really wants one of those unmute mute buttons. Anyway, so I'm seeing that families have been, they're ready to start self-determination, and they're being held up at least a month because of the FMS situation. I have families that were with the FMSs that pulled out, and they didn't get a smooth transition. So they're going for 1 month without services and being
Oh my
paid.
God.
And so that's, you know, they're gonna have to play catch up. But again, this is just something that I'm seeing. And the ones that are working right now are trying really hard. And I know that there's they're all suffering from acute growing pains. And the vaccine mandate killed a lot of the FMS staff, because, I mean, didn't kill it, but they resigned. Yeah, they resigned because the staff of the FMSs were because they are regional center associated with the regional centers, they had to have the vaccine mandate was in place. There's no reason why they had to have the vaccine mandate for them. I mean, other than you know,
No, that's not true, Tammy. The vaccine mandate was only for people who provide direct personal care.
No. But there were some FMSs that were required that the companies required them to adhere to the mandate.
Okay, so well, that's the company trying to keep everybody safe. Like, I'm a big supporter of that.
Oh, no. We are of in mind, but I'm saying that a lot of people quit over that.
Wow.
So
I had not heard that.
I heard that directly from the sources. So anyway, it's a crisis, and people just have to realize that when they're looking for an FMS, they start the process right when they're starting their person-centered plan, not while they're through the plan. They need to have at least 1 or 2 months lead time. So that's just what I'm finding. Yeah,
we've been hearing the same thing. And the reasons that I've been hearing, so there's two kinds of so ARC ceased the vaccine reason. Yeah, the reason I heard that ARC Center left had nothing to do with the vaccine mandate. It had to do with the fact that they felt they weren't making enough money, that the monthly rates were too low for the amount of effort that they were putting in. And so they said that it was all about money. Public partnerships, probably what I've heard is not directly from them, but what I'd heard from others is that it was that they may come back to the state at some point, but right now the program is so mired in bureaucracy that they need to have a lot of clients to make it work for them. And it's just getting clients in is just taking too long. So, and they work throughout the country and they haven't seen things work like this in other states. So, so it's really quite a problem. It's really, I don't know if there are any representatives from FMSs on this call, but you can certainly speak up if you have anything to say. Marla, go ahead, Marla.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, so I have my budget. I got everything down to the last step, you know, basically just you know, need it signed and delivered. But then when I am trying to find providers, and I actually have them in place already, but they don't want to work on a timesheet basis. So, I mean, they just want to be paid directly by me, probably because it's quicker.
And it's illegal. It's illegal though, right? Because that's money under the table they're getting from you, right?
Oh, I mean, I don't mind supplementing it all, but I'm just saying they don't want to work on a timesheet basis, because basically then they get to, you know, they get their tax form. They're basically an employee of the FMS, and they'll get, you know, the W-2 form or whatever it is at the end of the year, and they declare that money and all that. So they want to just be paid directly by me. You know, I'm hiring people who are not, you know, $10 an hour. They're a lot more, of course. So they don't want to do timesheets and deal with that.
Yeah.
So, but they're the people I want to hire.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in people working legally in this country. And I'm not talking about documented people versus undocumented. I'm talking about people who,
of course.
Yes. So the only way to do that is to actually be working for someone. Now, you only work for the FMS when you're in the co-employer model. When you're in the sole employer model, you're actually working for the person with the disability. That is who your employer is. And so in the sole employer model, I mean, you can negotiate how much you make. You can, there's a lot of flexibility in there, actually, with the co-employer model as well. There's a lot of flexibility. And so they can really, I think it's the only way. I mean, to have people be, you can certainly continue to pay people under the table if you want, but that's
It's not even
gonna
under,
work.
it's not even under the table. I'm paying them a pretty high rate, and it's not under the table. I pay them, electronically, so it's not under the table. But they don't want
But
to.
do they get a W-2 form for it?
Yeah, apparently the FMS says they would send out a W-2.
Oh, okay, but not when they're paying you privately, not when you're paying them
Oh,
privately.
no.
Right, so that's what's called under the table. It's because they're not
Okay.
getting taxes taken out of
yes.
the money,
Okay,
right?
Right. I
So
mean,
when-
they should be declaring their income however they declare it, but I mean, it's yeah, I don't know what they do. So
Well, you're actually supposed to be declaring their income, not them. You are, as the employer, are supposed to be declaring their income. Anyway, I don't want to get into
Okay.
labor law, but honestly, when somebody works in the state of California for an individual, they cannot be considered a 1099 or consultant employee. When you have a direct employment where you are directed by a person, what times you're supposed to be working, what you're supposed to be doing, that's considered an employee. That's our labor laws. And so, whether you pay them privately, like I have 2 staff for my son. One is paid through the self-determination program. The other one we pay privately for. And we submit quarterly taxes. We pay her share of her employer's taxes. Every quarterly we pay for her. And at the end of the year, we send her a W-2 or a W-4? I can't remember which
Right.
the 4. So we send her a W-4 by the end of January. And so so the benefits to her is that she's getting Social Security. I mean, she's paying into the Social Security system over these years that she's been working
Right.
for us, which is a good thing. So, this is, you're just going to have to say to your staff, like, everything. First of all, these are taxpayer dollars. Remember, the self-determination program is a combination of state and federal dollars. So everything has to be done completely above board and legally with the monies that are sent, including checking, your timesheets and making sure that you're actually showing up during the times that you are there. I can tell you that the timesheets, and other people can say whether this is true for them, but at least for the staff that my son has, the timesheets are really quite easy. They're all online. They just have to
Yeah.
put in their clock in and clock out, and I just approve it. It's really quite straightforward and simple.
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean,
that-
I would even, do it for them, but I guess they just, they want like a Venmo payment like right away, or, something like that. So
Yeah, so they may need to continue, if those are people that you value, you may need to continue to do what you need to do, but they can't move into the self-determination program unless they are doing, legally working. And it certainly will save you a lot of money if you're not paying out of pocket for them. So if they want to continue to have the job, then that will be the requirement, right?
okay.
Most
Okay.
people will say yes. I would guess most people will say yes.
Yeah, I haven't. Okay.
All right, good luck with that.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, my friend Howard, how are you?
Am I unmuted now? Can you hear me?
You are unmuted now.
Well, Happy New Year, Judy. And my problem is the FMS CT Independent did not pay the premium for my Medicare prescription for the last 3 months, and I got cut from Medicare Plan B.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
They got cut from Medicare Plan B, and the total was $86.90. I paid for that out of my credit card, but I still had not heard about whether I'm going to be reinstated on Medicare Plan B or not. I also need an antibiotic for a urinary tract infection that I had contracted, getting better, but I still need the antibiotic. They sent it to me, thank God. They sent it to me, they're going to bill me later. How they're going to bill me, I don't know, but at least I did get the antibiotic. I need a medication for my leg jerking, which is keeping me awake all night.
Yeah. So
So-
Howard, can I ask you a question about that?
So go ahead.
was there a reason that your FMS gave you that they didn't pay for it? Or what was it that they were not following through, or was there a specific problem with that request?
We had not heard from them about it. They just did not pay it. And Tareen it ribbit about it. And she says,
Ah.
"You want to get me another FMS when the New Year start in April 1st. And Shawnee said that she thinks they're just using an outdated system which cannot cope.
Okay, hey, Howard, let's have Talene call me about this, because this is, I'm very concerned. So have Talene or Sunny call me or email me so that I can follow up for you, okay?
Okay.
This is really a problem. I'm so sorry that happened.
Yeah, I could pay for at least some of my multi-essential medication if I had to. If I absolutely had to, I could, so I wouldn't be completely out. But Talene did not want me to have to pay for something that I should not pay for.
Absolutely. And so Howard, was those payments for the Medicare Part D, it was in your spending plan, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, see, that is really quite concerning to hear that. So
You
thank
know,
you.
I need my prescription medication, Judy.
Yeah, of course you do. Of course you do. So sorry, Howard,
You know, well, it's not the end of the world,
but
but I do need a new FMS.
yeah, and the problem is that there's not a lot of FMSs taking clients right now. So it's really quite,
So what do I do if I can't get a new?
well, that's why let me talk to you after or with Sunny and Talene, and let's see what we can do to help you, okay?
Okay.
All
All
right, Ed has messaged me that we have a bunch of questions and comments in the chat, so go ahead, Ed.
So our first question is anonymous.
Actually, you know what? It's hard to hear. Yeah, it's hard to hear
about-
you.
How about
There we
now?
go.
Okay,
Better.
I'm sorry. I had my hand over my mic. Our first question is anonymous. I have been trying to sign up for self-determination, but I don't have any money to participate in the self-determination program. I asked for clarification, and the anonymous question asker said, my regional center has been so retaliatory ever since they knew I was interested in self-determination that they have been deliberately withholding services from our child and our family to a point where now we have no budget, $0. How should we approach this?
Okay, so and Nina and Molly should chime in. The first thing you should do is contact the ombudsperson. I'm sure that's what Nina was going to say. Every complaint you have, including Howard's, every single person should be contacting the SDP ombudsperson, Katie Hornberger, because she needs to know all of these problems that people are facing. She works for DDS and she is supposed to be helping you. So please contact her, and Ed just wonderfully put the website in the chat for you to know how to do that. She has people who speak multiple languages there, and you can also call, you can make a phone call, and you can also have you can also email them. So lots of different ways. So that's what I would do, the first thing. The second thing is that your regional center local advisory committee should hear this concern. So every single regional center has a committee that is made up primarily of people with disabilities and family members. Now, some are better than others, but you should still try it. I don't know which regional center you are at, but you should at least try to go to those meetings. Most committees meet on a monthly basis. Some of them meet every other month, but you should absolutely attend the meeting, and they're required by law to have what's called public comment. It's time for you to say whatever you want to say, and they need to know how you feel you're facing retaliation. So that's the second idea. The third idea is a little bigger, and that if you feel like there's actual retaliation against you, you can file a civil rights complaint against your regional center. It's called the 4731 complaint. And maybe Nina could Google where you get that form on the DDS website and pop that into the chat. Unless, I don't know if Ed has it, but probably not. because that's not something we often talk about. But this 4731 complaint, that's just the number on the form. It's not like some special secret number. These complaints go to DDS, go to the Department of Developmental Services. So you don't file a 4731 complaint when you're having a disagreement with your regional center over services. That you go to fair hearing for, which something we call unfair hearing. But that is a disagreement about services or whether you're eligible for regional center services at all. But when you feel you're being retaliated against, that rises to the level of a civil rights complaint. So that's my third idea. I have a fourth idea for you too. And that is, oh, thank you, Ed. Awesome. That is, you should also contact the Office of Clients' Rights Advocate at your that's associated with your regional center. They work for for Disability Rights California. There is one at every regional center, an assistant at every regional center, and you need to let them know what you feel is happening with your child. So all of these things are and so for all of you, if any of you feel that you're facing significant problems with your regional center on your self-determination program, you should start with the ombudsperson. Go to your local advisory committee. Third, if you feel it's a larger issue of maybe they're targeting you in some way, you can go to your you can file a 4731 complaint. And fourth, you can go to your Office of Clients' Rights Advocates. So there's multiple ways of getting help. Each one has its own. Melissa Amster is saying that you don't have to use that form that is on the page. You can actually just write a letter and call it a 4731 complaint and write it to DDS. So there's lots of ways that you can file this. Oh yeah, Christina is making also a very important point. Every regional center has a DDS representative. And so you could also go to to the DDS representative, who usually comes to the board meetings, sometimes comes to the local advisory committee meetings, and you could file a complaint with them too. I'm going to tell you that they generally have zero power to do anything for you. What they could do is take your issue and elevate it up to somebody higher at the regional center who actually can, at DDS, sorry, who can help you with something. So yeah, so there's 5 different options here, and they're all been put in the chat. Okay. Nina, do you have any other ideas?
I would just, I always think it's worth, I think those are the main ones, but I always think it's worth also doing a request for assistance form with DRC. I can find what that is, but I do know that it's often worth, you can at least get a call back, you can at least get walked through, in addition to Clients' Rights Advocate. You can get some, other approaches, or just, you just may get a call back sooner, but it's always worth doing that on top of Clients' Rights Advocate. And I would also, go directly to the self-determination specialist at the regional center. I know they should be at the local advisory committee meetings, but go to them direct, say, I have been trying to get in. I think all avenues to cover, I think it's worth doing them all, because every place, if they are hearing the same things, that is the way we make some impact on DDS, I think. So, and ultimately, and the individual regional center, but I think it's worth doing it all of them. Yeah.
Thank you, Nina. So complaining to us is not going to get you a specific answer, because we do not take individual clients. However, we want to hear your concerns. We really do, because what we do is we advocate on a systemic level. So we may have a meeting with DDS, we may have a meeting with the ombudsperson where we talk about everything that we're hearing. And therefore, we can absolutely, bring these issues up to them, saying that we're hearing it at multiple regional centers. So we want to hear your concerns for sure, but we cannot take your case unless you're Howard McBroom, because he's been my friend for many, many years, and I will help him. But other than Howard, no, I'm not. It's very hard for me to help individuals.
Thanks, Judy.
Yeah, always for you, Howard. Howard's one of the founders of DVU too. He gets special attention. Okay, so go ahead, Ed, with the next comment.
Certainly. Next question I have is, does self-determination pay for your staff member you pay for? From Barbara.
Yes. Self-determination pays for the staff that you have working with you every day. And it can pay for lots of other things too. Like it can pay for an art class. It can pay for a matchmaker if you want to get married. It can pay for a swim class. There's so many cool things. It can pay for someone to help you find an apartment to live in. It can pay for the mover to move you into the apartment. There's so many great opportunities of things you can do with self-determination. But the number one thing that it does for almost everyone in the program is it pays for staff to support you to live and be in the community.
Thank you, Judy. Next question is from Joanna. Can the regional center be your FMS?
Absolutely not. No. Great question. The FMSs are the only vendors that are required in the system, in the self-determination program. No one else must be a vendor. And you can get the list of FMSs on the DDS website, as well as on your own individual regional center website. I cannot say that list is always kept completely up to date. Because there are some that are having very long wait lists, and there are some that have left the state. I was on it recently and saw that there was some definite errors on there. But you can certainly reach out to a whole bunch of FMSs and figure out which one works for you.
Got it. I have a message from Molly that she would like to present a question that was direct message to her. So take it away, Molly.
So, Judy, I've been hearing from a few people that some regional centers are asking that when they do their person that they're spending plan, they have to tie it to goals, but not just the goal. They need to do what they would do in the IPP. Like this will be done, that will be done.
Jeez.
And I saw a format of a spending plan that had every service code. So you have to line by line to go through the service code, and you input where you want to put your funding. Is that how it's supposed to be done?
No, that is not how it's supposed to be. First of all, those service codes are ridiculous. You as participants in the self-determination program are not supposed to be worried about service codes. In the traditional system, when you call up and you say, my son or I want to be in a day program, they don't go, well, that is service code 545 or whatever the freak it is. It's like, oh, and they keep talking to you about 545 and 364. And no, your life does not exist in service codes. And so it is very important for service codes to exist for every service that you purchase, because that's the way the billing happens, and that's the way the federal government pays the state for our services. But that's not your problem. And by the way, it's not even supposed to be the independent facilitator's problem. I know that we have some regional center staff on this call, and there's some really great regional center staff out there. But I need you to understand that this is their job. This is the job of a service coordinator. And you should also know that there's going to be a whole lot more service coordinators hired in the next year. Approximately, I believe it's something like almost 1,500 statewide new service coordinators. I don't have the exact number, but there's 900 regular service coordinators. And then in the state budget, there's like another 400 or 500 for early start. And then there's another 60 for self-determination. So there's a whole lot of new funding for operations of regional centers to reduce their caseload ratios. And so this is what they're supposed to be doing. And also, by the way, once you get into the self-determination program, you generally are not really working with your service coordinator much. I mean, I almost never speak to our service coordinator because decisions are all made within our team. And so, so service coordinators should be worrying about that, all those service codes. And now as about specific goals, I find it very ironic, and I just actually heard this from a friend who I asked to bring it. I don't even know if she's on this. Yeah, she's here. Hey there, you know I'm talking to you. That she had emailed me privately that she is being asked to jump through a whole bunch of hoops on goals and other things and accountability of those goals in self-determination when they were never asked in the traditional system. I can tell you that for a fact for my son, that he went for years and years without ever meeting any IPP goals and in the traditional system, and nobody ever questioned it. And now all of a sudden in self-determination, you have to show that all your goals are being met or else you can't continue to get funding for that service. Are you kidding me? And sometimes your goal is just maintaining your life the way it is. You don't have to constantly be growing. Sometimes you backslid and you're trying to get back to where you were before. So I know Will is saying that many regional centers are under the gun because of CMS waiver requirements. I don't believe that at all in the self-determination program. Go ahead, Nina.
Judy, because I was gonna actually call on Will and Irene. We were just at a local advisory committee meeting where a related issue came up of kind of the back of the house, all these requirements. Like, was there a disconnect between the move on what appears to be at least an effort on DDS's part with those new FAQs about not being as specific, not timed, if you don't have the name of a provider yet or an exact amount, a move towards more flexibility. And yet the regional center was making the point of, this is a waiver program and we're subject to all this specificity kind of in the back, on the back end, and we've got to tie everything down. We have to, and there's this sense that that either they are getting this guidance or people interpreting Medicaid requirements as it relates to the self-determination waiver and how that appears in the front of the house. There's I think this needs like its own topic of a discussion, an open discussion about what is going on, because all of this I think relates to why it takes 100 steps to get approval for a minor change or any of this stuff. And I just think that, will chime in. I just feel that, there's something, if that's the view that like the requirements of the, of the SDP waiver of all of the, 1915C waiver stuff are so onerous that nothing is really changed for self-determination, that is going to get reflected with all of us. Mm-hmm. So I just feel this is a critical issue to work out. And mm-hmm. Will, Irene, anybody chime in, please?
Yeah, I mean, it's one that we've run into more and more, and it really goes back to one of the challenges with the federal government. And Judy, I think back in 2014, Jim Burt and I both voiced the federal government is going to give us money, but there are no free lunches. There's going to be a lot of strings. And I think what's happening right now is the feds are operating, CMS, while it's pushing for more community-based stuff, it hasn't changed the fundamental view of its world of being a medical model, that it expects everything for utilization and detailed service reports to be done. In the traditional system, it's actually relatively simple because it's a service code who provides, billing through the e-billing system, which provides the days of service. Self-determination is people are buying what they want to buy, and no one can really see that at the DDS level. So I think we have a massive disconnect, and I actually had a brief, sort of sidebar conversation with Katie last night
Oh,
Hornberger related and said, we're going to have to do something, I think, federally, get some more federal representatives that really sort of go to CMS and say, we need to fix this for self-determination. Not all regional centers are doing it. The ones that seem to be most are those who have been bitten by a CMS audit in the traditional system, where they've been, impacted. Like, we didn't have a record that someone got IHSS hours that month and how many hours they were, because it was in their IPP. So it's that kind of stuff that is, you're getting service coordinators really pushing for significantly more details, many more IPP addendums, spending plans that are much more detailed. Even though DDS's, FAQ said, hey, it could be estimates, you can do this. I mean, there's a massive disconnect there of some sort. And I think it's really related to the waivers, how they've operated traditionally and, all other things. And self-determination doesn't fit into that space. So I think we need to maybe get help at the federal level to get that sort of release of that pressure. So, I mean, that's where I'm seeing it. I mean, I'd really love to talk with Jim Knight about it, because he would be, he's the pro from Dover on that.
mhm.
But that's, I mean, it did come up, and we had probably a half-hour conversation about it last night. So
Could I jump in, Judy?
Yeah, go ahead, Mon.
The key you said, Will, was some regional centers are making it so difficult, and some are. That's DDS where we gotta go to first, because if DDS is like, here's the clear guidelines about your spending plan and not being tied to goals and not every little detail, it's on DDS to go to the regional center and say, knock it off. You need they should say, we have your back because we deal with this feds overall, so knock it off. So that's the first thing we need to do, instead of just making more bureaucracy. I think we need to get DEF to look at this and really say, we gotta get some regional centers to back up.
Mhm.
I don't disagree, Molly. I think one of the challenges is you're assuming that DDS functions as one complete understanding organization, that everybody's on the same page. Self-determination is one small portion of what's happening. The waiver folks who really track and audit and do all the waiver stuff, they may not be able to spell self-determination.
But
I mean, there's an order.
that's where we gotta get DDS to get their self on the same page and get it out to regional centers in a directive. So, so that's where I want to start, and trying to go to the feds. It might not really be a Fed issue. It's just regional centers making it more complicated than they need to. I used to run a federal grant. I did it. You have to be very diligent, but this is ridiculous. Where at one, I don't have to do that at my regional center, but you have to do that at your regional center.
Mhm.
That's the issue.
Yeah. Irene, you wanted to join in this.
Yeah, I had just another angle I was thinking about on this. There are self-determination programs in other states, and if any of those use Medicaid waiver
All of them.
funds, and okay, all of them do. And I've heard that they tend to be in other states, simpler programs. So anyway, looking at how they deal with this, I think would help, or
So you should-
might provide some
Yeah, so
more
our state
useful
is very
interpretation.
different. So our
What's-
state is very different. Harvey Lapin is an expert on this, but our state is
Yeah.
very different. So no other state has regional centers.
Right.
So
Well,
you don't have, so remember, we have regional centers who are implementing the traditional system, And then they're also implementing self-determination. In most
Mhm.
states, like in Michigan, in Wisconsin, they don't have regional centers. Sometimes it's at the county level. Sometimes there are other agencies who have the traditional system, and then completely different agencies are doing self-direction, okay, who are doing self-determination.
Mhm.
And so, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm talking over people. So I tend to do that. It's the New Yorker in me. Sorry, people. It's really important for us to understand that there is an inherent conflict within a regional center to have to implement both. And we have talked about this in previous STP Connects, that we believe at DVU that is a problem. And that we hope at some point in the years ahead of us that we will have a statewide regional center-ish type agency that will just do self-determination for people, and that is their expertise, and that it in no way competes with the work that they're doing on in the traditional system. But Harvey, did you want to add to this? I allowed you to, you have to unmute, Harv. There we go.
I think it's important to know that probably, and it's taken me time to get to this point, that self-determination is a separate entity. It's complicated. Like in Michigan, Oakland County, they call it a mental health place that contracts out the community services that just does self-determination. They're dealing with 900 people there, and the same number in Wayne County. The IRIS program in Wisconsin really has taken off like crazy, meaning they thought, I talked to the director a few times, they thought there would be, and the IRIS program that is strictly self-determination, strictly. And what they do there, they're both under the Medicaid,
Medicaid.
A waiver.
Medicaid. Yeah, the whole state. Okay, so they take in a lot of other stuff, mental health, the elderly and all that. The IRIS program, the director told me that we expected maybe out of their 86,000 people that would be qualified for it, they figured maybe 5,000 would go in it. Now, the last time I talked to her, there were 23,000 and climbing. Don't know where it's now. I think California would be very wise, and I'm hoping, and we should push it, all of us, hey, separate entity, implement self-determination, where they know how to deal with the feds, they know how to do all the things that are necessary. Right now, it's like a chicken with their head cut off. They don't know what they're doing.
I think this is Connie, I think the biggest problem is we've got two trains running. We have regional center and self-determination.
Right.
And it's a huge paradigm shift. And it's always a challenge when you have two different programs going, because there's a lot of fear of change.
And there's fear of retaliation from lots of people. And, we got to keep pushing it. That's it, because it's here to stay.
And thanks for doing this, Judy. This
Yes.
is so important.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I just make one last point, Judy, on
Yeah.
just to follow up on coming back around to Irene's point, which I think you and Harvey actually sort of validated in a way, which is the fact that when it's separated, in other states, somehow they're not all tied in knots by federal requirements, right? They can function perfectly fine. So to me, that proves the point. But since it will take a while for us to achieve the goal of, a co-op for self-determination, until that time, at least we should, we can make the point, somehow other states are not having, as purely because of federal requirements, this complete bureaucratic, stranglehold. So anyway, I just think it does underscore the point that this should be doable even in our system now.
I agree. Ed, there's a bunch of comments in the chat, so go ahead.
Absolutely. So I'm going to smush two of them together. One is anonymous, one is from Catherine. An anonymous question asker wants to know which FMSs still work or are taking new clients in California. And Catherine would like to know if we're reaching out to one of those FMSs and they don't respond, what should we do?
Yeah. So remember, each regional center vendors different sets of FMSs. And so there's a few FMSs which only work at 1 or 2 regional centers. And then there are some FMSs who work at all 21. So it's important to look to see what your regional center is doing. And if you're calling FMSs and they're not calling you back, I mean, like, once again, it's those areas that we talked about. Talk to the head of the self-determination program at your regional center, every single one. Or talk to the SDP ombuds person. You go back in the chat and you'll see the connection to her. Go to your local advisory committee of your regional center. I was just at my local advisory committee meeting last night, and I was saying, you know, there's problems. We got a question about FMSs, and I said, yeah, I mean, maybe what the local advisory committee should do is to invite all the FMSs to come to a meeting of the committee and ask them how they're doing, and to ask them, why are these problems occurring? And I think that they, you know, I think there's a lot of people who need to hold others accountable. I mean, particularly those local advisory committees, if any of you there who sit on them, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that you guys can be doing right now. Some advisory committees ask me, well, what should we be doing? Oh my God, there's just a ton right now, a ton. Go ahead, Ed.
Yes. Our next question is from Debbie. You mentioned conservatorships in the beginning of this call. I'm my daughter's conservator. Is this going to be a problem in the future for the program or for anything else?
So it's certainly not a problem for people in the self-determination program. There's lots of conserved people in self-determination. So I don't want to conflate the work that we're doing on conservatorship reform with the work we're trying to do on self-determination, even though empowering people with disabilities is certainly at the core of both of those. So anybody who's conserved can be in the self-determination program. However, if you are conserved and you want to be in the self-determination, if you're a person with a disability and you're conserved and you want to be in the self-determination program, and your conservator says, I don't want you to be in it, the conservator has their way. And so, you know, obviously that's quite problematic. That's the opposite of self-determination. But I know that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about amazing parents who are conservators of their adult children who are in the self-determination program, and there's absolutely no conflict. The kind of work that we're looking at in our reform bill is really looking at a whole range of ways of protecting people who have not gone into conservatorship yet, but also protecting people who are in conservatorship to allow them to exit it if they choose, but also to ensure that the conservatorship isn't taken away from the parents and given to either the regional center or to a professional conservator, which we hear increasingly happening out there, that the courts take away conservatorship from the parents. So we're putting in some protections in the bill on that as well. So stay tuned. We'll have lots of information about it. Go ahead, Ed.
Yes, next question. So we have a question that is anonymous again. I would like to know other options. We hired our independent facilitator. She told us to invite at least one ABA, OT, and ST of our child. I apologize. I don't know what all of those stand for.
I do, so don't worry about that. Almost any parent would.
Got it. I wonder if I invite them, can we use the budget or reimbursement to pay for their time? As of now, we cannot start the PCP because of the availability of everyone, including my son's advocate.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand this question since you read it. Let me reinterpret it to make sure I'm getting it right, Ed. You can't, if you're talking about inviting the OT is occupational therapist, PT is physical therapist, ABA is applied behavioral analysis, or the behaviorist. If you're talking about inviting them to a person-centered plan that will help transition you into the self-determination program, there is no self-determination budget in which to pay them. because you haven't entered the program yet. So the answer would be no. Now, once you're in the self-determination program, you can absolutely have line items, and we do in my son's budget for team meetings, and so that his therapists, his aides, his teachers, anybody who's part of his life can meet maybe every 3-4 months and talk to each other to make sure everyone's on the same page. We can also pay them, if we so desire, to have them come to his person-centered planning meeting, as well as to his IPP meeting with the regional center. But you can only pay them to do that once you're already in the self-determination program.
Judy, could I just add that I heard it was the IF who wanted these people to come, saying they should be there.
Right.
It is not up to the IF to decide who you have at your person-centered planning session. If you don't want these people, you don't have to have these people. I mean, if you want them, that's fine, and go back to what Judy said. But IF cannot say who should be at your IPP planning. They should say, do you want so-and-so? But they can't say you need these people here. No.
Thank you, Molly. That was excellent that you pointed out the way that that was written. That is absolutely true. The independent facilitator should never be telling you anything of what you're doing, except to say, when are you available for us to meet? And you can tell me how you want to run things. So thank you for pointing that out. That was really important, Molly. Go ahead, Ed. Let's take one more, and then I'm going to go to Lourdes.
Sure thing. From Hawk, I have a question. Our service coordinator is wanting to do quarterly meetings. I thought we were supposed to not have to do this.
Okay, so that question has actually come up in the past, and so I've asked about it. So quarterly meetings have nothing to do with whether you're in the self-determination program or whether you're in the traditional system, or in fact, what services you get specifically. The requirement for quarterly meetings by your service coordinator are if you are an adult who lives outside the home of your family. So if you are an adult who is living in a group home, if you are an adult who is living in supported living services, or if you have your own place and you are using the self-determination program, you are still required for health and safety reasons the regional center needs to have their eyes on you. I agree with this, by the way. I just wish it was done better, because I know of stories of regional centers coming in quarterly and not noticing that the adult was getting abused by their providers. And the provider would always sit next to them and answer all the questions for them. And for years, the abuse went on, and the regional center never noticed it. And so, so I am totally supportive of quarterly meetings, as long as they're actually meeting with the person alone without the service provider and trying to really get at whether this person is actually safe. All right, let me go to Lourdes. Did you want to ask a question?
Yes, so I wanted to find out, I've been coming across families are asking me that multiple independent facilitators are charging $100 fee, and it's mandatory if they want their PCP done. Can you clarify, like, what are they supposed to be charging, or what are they doing for $100 additional to, like, it's a monthly fee that they get because they created their PCP and they got them into self-determination? Is it allowable? Like, are we reporting those people? What's the deal?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And it's something that is on the radar of DDS. So some independent facilitators are charging a sort of monthly fee or retainer just to be available to that client. Sometimes it's not 100, sometimes it's 500, sometimes it's even $1,000. And they do not have to account for any hours they actually worked for that individual. It's just a retainer. And I can tell you something, DDS is not happy about it because it needs to be fee for service. You need to actually have worked for the client in order to bill them. So the problem is that DDS, while aware of the situation, has yet to put out a directive on this, has yet to say it is a problem. So therefore, the practice continues. All I can do is tell people who are participants in the program and their families that you should not be agreeing to this, that if your independent facilitator has said, you need to pay me whether I work for you or not, you should say absolutely no, and move on to a different independent facilitator who doesn't charge that. And then over time, hopefully DDS will actually come out with some directive on this. Okay.
Oh, sorry, Judy.
I hope that helped, Lourdes. Go ahead, Ed.
Yes, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I have a question from Sonia. Hello, can my son receive ABA and self-determination by a company, or does the regional center pay them separately from self-determination? In addition, if I don't use an ABA company to provide those services, how can my son get approval to renew his ABA services?
Yeah, so ABA, when they're provided by the regional center, it generally means it's not for a child with autism. It's usually for a child with a different disability. And sometimes adults who get turned down by their insurance. And primarily ABA, which stands for Applied Behavioral Analysis, it's a type of behavioral therapy. ABA therapy is primarily paid for by insurance companies, including Medi-Cal. So they are, so that is paid for if it's your insurance outside of your self-determination program budget. Okay. But for some people, behavioral therapy is paid for by the regional center, and you are not required. There is no line between the budget, the monies that are spent in the traditional system to the monies in your spending plan. There is no line. And I can tell you this, that I have seen the directive that is coming out from DDS, and nowhere does it mention that everything that's in in the traditional system must be spent in the same way in your spending plan. Now, when you have what there is in this directive is that everything in your spending plan must address your IPP goals. And if they are funding behavioral therapy, to create your budget, there must be behavioral goals, or else they're not going to fund it anymore. So let's say your behavioral goals are, the individual will stay calm in stressful situations is one. The individual will get friends, will be able to make friends in the community. Let's say those are two of your goals. To achieve the goal of remaining calm in a stressful situation, it doesn't mean you have to use ABA therapy to do that. There are lots of ways for people to stay calm in stressful situations. You can hire a person to teach you how to meditate. You can go to swim class, which helps your body. You can use sensory integration therapy. You can use horseback riding. There's so many different ways that people have to be able to keep their body calm in stressful situations. So as long as all of those items in your spending plan relate to that behavioral goal, then you should be fine. But it does not have to be ABA therapy in your spending plan. So I'm not sure I answered your question directly. If I didn't, feel free to raise your hand. okay, and ask it in a different way, okay?
I have a question from, one second, let me get back to where I was. From Melissa. Can you talk about social rec and getting a copy of our local regional center proposal to DDS?
Can you say that question again? I'm sorry, I was getting a text from a family member.
Yes, absolutely. Melissa asks, can you talk about social rec and getting a copy of our local regional center proposal to DDS?
So the proposal that your regional center sent to DDS should be made available publicly on your DDS website. I'm sorry, on your regional center website. If you cannot find that proposal, then you should call your regional center and ask them to send it to you.
Right. It might be called an outreach plan. That's what the directive called it. So it's
Okay,
called an outreach, a social rec outreach plan. So you could look for that as well. But yeah, it should be publicly available.
Nina, do you have any other updates on social rec? Because did you go to some DRC training about it?
Yes, and I'm wondering if that question wasn't an outgrowth of that.
Yeah.
Because there was a DRC webinar about the restoration of social rec, and I thought they pointed out some very useful things. One of them was, there's supposed to be an outreach plan by regional centers were supposed to have submitted those to DDS by the end of December. And mostly, I mean, part of that should be regional centers reaching out. We're hoping that it also could encompass trying to develop more connections and more social rec programs out in the community, but they're supposed to be telling consumers about the fact that this service has been restored since 2009. I think the most important thing that the DRC training pointed out was that, since 2009, every regional center has purchase of service policies, and they had, it was a very restrictive policy, purchase of service policy for, social recreational services. And so, they want to make sure, DRC said, make sure that you ask about what the current policy is and make sure that there still isn't a residue of the very extreme, you had to prove a huge, just go through all kinds of hurdles to get an exception to the, to the fact that there was no funding for social rec in the past. So they were very clear to say, make sure you ask about their new policy, what are their new policies, and make sure it doesn't have kind of the flavor of the old one that was super restrictive, which I thought was very helpful. And that was one of the main things. But they're supposed to be following the directive, and obviously you have to tie it like anything to a service that you need, to your goals and your needs. So, make sure before you call an IPP meeting to request the restoration, then, you want to make sure that you thought about what you need and how it relates to a goal and a need. However, remember, in self-determination, we're in a different position. That, to me, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Judy, but the way to think about social rec is that something that was a need that now can be met, but you can get your budget to, as long as you demonstrate the need for it, your budget could be enhanced, but you then, I mean, we were in self-determination, we were free to do kinds of social rec types of things. So, so you have to think that through, and there were some questions for DRC saying, my regional center thinks that you need to be vendorized, but not in self-determination. And Bibo was there from Clients' Rights Advocates who said, oh yeah, that's a problem. So, keeping those two things straight, I think is an issue. And, it's just good to have that in mind. And, DRC did put out, I don't know if it's on their website yet, but they put out one of their publications kind of walking through the directive and restoration.
So can I ask, did it come up today at this briefing that in some regional centers, they're saying you can't have both respite and social rec, you have to choose one or the other?
I asked that question in the chat. And they said, unless it is duplicative, that is not correct. You can't be denied unless you're literally somehow are just getting a duplicative kind of service, it should not be the issue. That is not to use social rec. That should be a super high hurdle to somehow make the argument that you're demonstrating the need for social rec should cut down on respite. That should be a very high hurdle for regional centers.
Right, because they're completely different goals. Respite is about giving a break to the family, and social rec is about athletic activities, about being included in your community, about enjoying yourself. It's you should know that I did speak to DDS about this. I meant to tell you that, Nina, the other day, and said, nothing is happening and no one has been able to access social rec. This was during a presentation of the budget for next year. Remember, the budget for the Department of Developmental Services starts on July 1st. So this is the budget for starting July 1st. And I asked if they modified and lowered the amount of money that social rec was going to cost in this year, because basically no one in the state has gotten it yet. And they said, no, we're not lowering it. We think that people will start receiving it. And we know it's taking a long time to roll out. So it's definitely something we have our eyes on, because those of you in the self-determination program, while you can use money in your spending plan for these activities and camp and all these other things, you're not able to get your budget increase to include those kinds of services. Yeah, here's somebody saying they were told, Joanna saying they had to give up respite for camp. Joanna, if you could tell us which regional center you're at, that would be helpful, because we're hearing it pretty consistently at Regional Center of Orange County, but it may be San Andreas. Awesome. So it's happening in multiple regional centers. Yeah. Oh my God, so many problems. Sometimes I leave these SDP Connects and I just want to crawl into my bed and curl up in a little ball. It's just the hurdles are so high for all of you. No wonder. I actually just heard yesterday that we finally hit 1,000 people in the self-determination program. Woohoo! We should be at 10,000 people right now. There's a reason why there's so few of us in it. We know that we're the few. By the way, DDS is estimating that as of next year, there will be 408,000 consumers in the state of California. That is a ridiculously high number. And for there only to be 1,000 people out of that is in the self-determination program makes me sad. Okay, next comment. Do you have anything else in there, Ed?
Sure do. I have a question from Barbara. Our OC Regional is looking for aid for my granddaughter. They said they are having a hard time finding an aide. How long should we respectfully wait to have them find someone to come to the house to assist?
Who is looking for the aide, Ed?
I believe it's Orange County Regional Center. Barbara, please correct me if I'm incorrect.
Okay, so regional centers do not help you find an aide. That's not the way it works. Regional centers give you an agency that may help you find an aide, but they don't look for a specific aide for you. So that's why I'm a little bit confused by this question. They may be referring you to a respite agency who might find someone for you, or a day program. But if you, certainly in the self-determination program, regional centers would never, ever be finding an aide. So that's very confusing to me. So I'm not really sure what that means. This is why you have independent facilitators. They help you find staff, or they should be helping you find staff.
I have a question from Nirmala. How can you know who the regional center person is for the DDS, say for San Andreas Regional Center? I'm not sure what this refers to, Nirmala.
So DDS has, I think, seven staff, and each of them have 3 regional centers. That is it more? Is it's more than that. I can't, well, there's a whole lot of staff out there. They got this in a couple of years ago in $53 million. We were one of the few groups that publicly opposed this idea. So there's all these regional centers, there's all these GDS staff who are supposed to be monitoring regional centers and helping people, well, at least giving you information if you ask for it, or taking your concerns up to DDS. Does anybody know if there's a list of who they are and what their phone numbers are? Because I've not personally seen that. I can tell you that Ernie Cruz is in charge of them up at DDS, so he could certainly do that. And I think he'll kill me, but I'm going to give his email out. As long as you are nice to him, please be nice to him. So it's Ernie.Cruz. I'll put it in. Please be nice to him. He's a good guy. And just say, I am looking for the regional center representative for San Andreas Regional Center, and he will give you their contact information. He's the boss of all of them. Okay. They have about 2 to 4 regional centers now versus the 6 who used to visit all 21. Okay. Yeah, there's just a whole lot of staff. I mean, the amount of money that regional center operations and DDS operations has gotten in the last couple of years is quite astounding, considering that the only new services they've added for us is social rec, and you've heard how virtually no one's getting it. And they've added an additional service for us, which allows adults who still live at home to get supported living services. Although I haven't heard a single person accessing that service either. Nina, have you heard of anybody? What is that called again? And
I haven't, and that's a pilot. I don't even know that has not gotten a lot of publicity. So
yeah, I don't think they've implemented it at all.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we're getting closer to the time. So let's get to the last couple of questions.
Certainly. I'm actually just moving it into the document now. I have another question that is anonymous. And our anonymous question asker asks, I have heard that tickets and passes are no longer eligible for coverage in the self-determination program. Is this true? And when did this happen?
Like, did you say Disneyland passes? I was looking at the chat.
They did not specify, but I suspect that's what they're referring to.
Okay. Yeah. So it hasn't come out in writing yet, but it's any day now, guys. Probably in the next week or so, the directive is going to be very, very clear that admissions to amusement parks, concerts, ice shows, and things purely for entertainment value. So not admissions to conferences or trainings or classes, but things that are purely entertainment cannot be purchased with the self-determination program. However, admission tickets for your staff, your paid staff through the self-determination program can be purchased. Okay, that's really important. So it's not like you can purchase for your brother and sister, but you can purchase unless they're your paid aid in the self-determination program. So only for people within self-determination can it be paid for. So yes, that is coming very soon. The whole Disneyland ticket fiasco people are like, this is an outrage. So that's what they are really focusing in on. Passes for state parks. You would have to really tie that. Well, first of all, guys, passes for state parks are free for people with disabilities. Do you not know this? We have free state park pass in all national parks for people with disabilities. It's completely free. So there's your generic resource, guys. Half price, I don't know. I feel like we got them for free. So honestly, I think that those are the kinds of things you really want to those are not the things you want to have big arguments on, guys. You want to have big arguments about the things that were really meaningful in your plan. We got a fishing license free also. That's awesome. Yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff out there. Some of the local museums, by the way, give free admission to people with disabilities and their staff. You should always ask that question. Always ask.
Thank you, Judy. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. Good.
I have a question from Sonny. We've been looking for the language on that in writing the SLS services for people living at home. Regional centers don't know about it. Excuse me, regional centers service coordinators don't know about it.
Yeah.
Do you have language on that, statute or otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, it was part of the HCBS spending plan, right, Nina?
Yeah, I'll find it, and if I don't get it into the chat in time, I'll send it to Sunny.
Yeah, so the language is it's in the law. It is in law, folks, because the HCBS, the Home and Community-Based Services Spending Plan, or the ARPA plan, is actually has been approved by the federal government. So it's real now, folks. Okay, so do we have one final question in our last couple minutes?
Sure do. From Sue, what's the scoop on the supported living you just mentioned? Is it a pilot program?
Yes, it's a pilot.
I did not realize that, Nina. I thought it was like totally open to everybody, but it's a pilot.
I don't think they figured out how they're going to implement
means.
it. And I think it is a pilot program, but I'll find the language and we'll get it up.
So does that, we don't know if that means it's like only at certain regional centers, or
Right.
it's only for a certain number of people.
Right. I don't know how they're planning to implement it.
And
Mhm.
Sue's asking for clarification. I need information. How do I get it? And I think the conclusion, Sue, is we don't know yet.
Yeah. They're still figuring it out. All right, well, everybody, please join us. Oh, Mari, we're about to end, hon, so I had to take the last question because our interpreters need to leave at exactly 6. So yes, the enhanced SLS program is exactly, Nirmala is asking me that question in the chat. So just want to tell you, we'll be back in 2 weeks. We have a lot going on. We're very excited about all the things that we're doing. We're going to have a conversation about how to make the person be really centered in the person-centered planning. We're going to be talking about the new directives when they come out, which are going to be about your spending plan, as well as about your about making sure that all of your services are in the community. So this is we have a lot to do this year. I hope that you all stay safe. I've started with that and I'll end with that. Just for the next couple of weeks, I just really suggest everybody, don't go to big parties indoors. Don't make sure you're wearing a KN95 mask. By the way, if any of you are still wearing the cloth masks, the CDC has just said that they are not helpful. They're not going to work against this new Omicron variant. And you need to make sure that you have a better mask. And so you ask, well, where do I get those masks? Guess what? The regional centers have been given gazillions of these masks, and they're responsible to get them to you. You know who else has a lot of masks? The State Council on Developmental Disabilities. So you should be reaching out. If you don't have your mask, don't be looking on Amazon. Call up your service coordinator and said, we need masks right now. Can I come pick them up? Somebody's asking whether COVID tests are being distributed by regional centers. Not to my knowledge. However, some regional centers, I know for sure San Andreas and Westside, at a minimum, and probably more, are having test days. It doesn't really help if you have, like this Saturday, I know Westside Regional Center is having a test day. So that, that if that happens to be the day that you feel like you're getting COVID, that works out for you. But if on Tuesday you feel like you're having symptoms of COVID, it doesn't really help you. But there's places all over your community where you should try to get tests. So that's all for today. Thank you so much. And we will be seeing you in 2 weeks. Please stay safe out there. Take care, everybody. Happy New Year.